On this report, the Marin County Department of Agriculture Weights and Measures presents excerpts from a pesticide applicator's workshop for landscape professionals. The topic, Common Pesticide Use, Noncompliances.
I want to acknowledge the fact that a lot of inspections look great. I mean, the records look fine. As you know, if you're home-based, or, we come out, we take a look at your records. We see you out along the road, and we stop, and we do application inspections, and we find many of our inspections look great. So you're doing a good job out there. There are lots of laws and regs, but of the ones I'm talking about today, there's only about 14 or 15 that just kind of reoccur. The most common one that we get from people calling into our office is lack of prior notification. It's a little bit different, the requirements for agriculture versus structural, but the bottom line is there's always a few things that you have to always let people know about, and that's a date that the application's going to occur, the name of the pesticide, and some precautions that go along with the pesticide, what comes off the labeling. That's the minimum, and then there's certain regulations that call for more. Lately, we've had a rash of complaints on rodent bait stations. Those little black plastic boxes that are left out there, people are finding them and they're calling in. A lot of times we can tell they're maintained enough to where we could tell they're currently being serviced. Some of them are clearly old and abandoned and just been out there for years. We don't even know who they belong to at this point. And probably the most current thing or the most common thing that we find is on California Code of Regulations 6738, and that's the one pertaining to personal protective equipment, PPE. The most common thing that we find in there is either not having eye protection or gloves. And I'd say between the two, more commonly, eye protection isn't provided. The other thing that we see commonly is handler training. We just could tell that people aren't trained out there. You have to follow the label. It's a catch-all because use in conflict could be anything. It could be you're not wearing certain protective gear that's asked for. It might be that you're applying to a commodity or site that isn't on the label. It might be that if it says don't drift and you're drifting. Basically, if you're doing anything that the label says don't do, that's use in conflict. You always have to have a label out there. If the label falls off, get another one, do something. That container needs to be marked in some way. So you don't want to just have like this plastic container of this mystery chemical that isn't marked at all. Every now and then we'll find that. Another common thing that we find is Section 6678, service container labeling. And a service container is anything other than the original container. So if you've got your chemicals in there, such as a hand pump or any other kind of equipment, the rig on the back of your truck there, you need to have it labeled in such a way that going down the road, emergency response, people know what's in there, we know what's in there. You never want to store the pesticides in there with yourself. They need to be back locked up somewhere else. Don't put them in the cab with you. Sometimes when we're out there and we're driving, we don't know what we're going to find. We just drive out there and see someone spraying. And probably one of the most common things that we find, if we find a violation or non-compliance, is someone says, well, this isn't my truck. My truck's in the shop. I'm driving somebody else's. And, when you put yourself in my shoes, it really doesn't matter, and usually that's when we find like there's not medical care posting or there's not soap or water, so make sure before the guys leave, the yard, in the morning, that whoever's truck it is, that it's outfitted properly. Equipment identification, labeling your truck, your vehicle, every now and then we'll find that out there. Usually when we see things like that, it's when it's someone that's unlicensed. When we find someone that's unlicensed, all of these things I'm talking about are the problem. They're not licensed, they're not registered, they're not trained, nothing's identified. The whole thing is sloppy, food in with the chemicals. It's just a lot of violations we'll see when someone's not licensed.
If you would like to download the complete Common Pesticide Use Noncompliances document used in the workshop, please visit the website on your screen.